Hello and welcome. Today I'm going to teach you how to do this tabby cat. It's going to be using the India ink and watercolor set that we have, and I want you to get to see up close the special effects that the India ink are going to do on this project before we even get started. See that? Look at how the ink has spread and made this unique effect on the patterns of this tabby cat. That is going to be super fun, and that's going to be using the India ink with a wet on wet technique. So I'm super excited about that, but first we're going to have to learn how to draw it. But don't worry, it's not tricky. I like to find the midpoints on my tape. In this picture, nothing really happens at any of the midpoints, but I think it's helpful as a teacher to have that compass, those north, south, east, and west points available for you so that you can compare my marks on my page to where those marks are and your marks to where those marks are. So I like to look at the top and guess about where the middle is. By the way, I do not put this on my actual artwork, it is on the tape. So I'm gonna find where I think the midpoint is there and put a mark, and there, and there. The other thing is, if you're ever drawing from a photo reference, it is helpful to mark the midpoints on there as well. This is just a drawing device to help you be able to draw whatever it is that you're looking at. We are going to notice that this picture of the cat is really filling the whole space. Its tail is snuggled up to the side, its front paw is snuggled up to the side, this ear is nearly to the top, and there's very little space at the bottom. This is about this cat. So we want to start with these two horizontal lines very near to the bottom, and those will be the paws. So I've got one horizontal line on this side of my mark, and I have another horizontal line at about the same distance on that side of my mark. Those are our first two marks. It's always hardest to get the first marks on, so let's get those. To be able to judge if you have your lines in the right place, let's think about it this way. You need enough space back here that we can draw the tail. And you need enough space up here that there's some empty carpet in front of the cat. And you need enough space in the middle part that you can see the cat's stomach. This cat is especially happy. You can see its little front paw is like bent in. It's probably making those little biscuits that happy kitties do. And so we'll go ahead and put those curves in. So I'm gonna start here and go up and back about halfway. I'm not gonna go the whole distance. And on this side, I'm gonna go up and back only about a third of the way. So remember, their back feet are longer and their front paws are like they're shorter. So you want just a short distance here and a long distance there. Then we get to put the elbows and knees on. So for this cat, the elbow comes from the back and kind of goes up. So you're gonna bend up and we're gonna put a parenthesis shape right on the toe of that foot. Before you start doing details, let's look and really make sure that we have paws that are the right size for a cat. What you do not want is to have teeny little skinny paws down here for this big cat that we're making. Remember, this cat is going to be bigger than that cat. And so I want to make sure it's a good distance. So my thumb fits in there without the line touching me. On both of them, my thumb fits in there. So if you are an adult, see if you can get your thumb to fit in there. If you're a child, find an adult and borrow their thumb. Okay, so that should work pretty good. Next, we're gonna put the heel of this foot on. So I'm gonna go back here, find my heel. It goes, curves up and back. Now you notice I'm pressing pretty hard because I want you to be able to see what I am doing. If I press gently like I would really want to when I'm making my artwork, you wouldn't be able to see what I'm doing. But when you are doing your work, please press gently. That way, if you make a mistake, you can erase it easily and try again. If you press really hard, it's like you're tattooing the paper. because it actually will create a groove in the surface of the paper and the eraser won't even be able to erase it. Think about where the face of this cat is going to be. So we want the head to nestle up here in this corner. And if you look at the nose, it has this definite capital letter L shape, but it's rotated in space. It's not in the right direction as a letter L. So I want to come way up. Notice it's above the paw. And it's not too close to the tape. It's kind of snuggly. And I'm going to put my letter L right about there. So you can kind of see that letter L in the space. And so that's going to be really helpful because then I can draw the throat coming down and you get this nice kind of curved shape here. I'm going to put that cute smile in because I think that'll be helpful. So I'm going to start here and I'm going to go down and get that cute smile. And then I'm going to return and go in for his little throat and then back out for his chest or her chest. We can't tell from this angle if this is a girl cat or a boy cat. So I'm really not sure. And so now we have that throat and the chest, and I'm noticing that my nose looks a bit long. See that? So I'm just going to shorten it a bit. See how I did that? Shorter and cuter. Okay, and I can do my little curve so that I've got my pink nose there on the end. All right, next I can go ahead and put the paw from the other side. So it is going to be sticking, first I'm going to put a diving board straight out from near the top of that paw. And then I'm going to curve over and back up to the body. And I'm going to draw the line for the stomach right about here, laying on the carpet. And I'm going to put toes. Now remember, I got to put toes on this one and this one, but not this one because it's folded underneath of the kitty. Okay, now I know we're excited about the head. We are also a little nervous about the head because it's the hard part in our minds because it's the part that looks like the cat. So we'll go ahead and do it. And it reminds me of a baseball cap because it has the straight bill and then it has the curve of the head. So the curve of the head. And then it kind of comes, okay, so how to measure how far out it needs to be? This shoulder lines up with the back of the neck. So I've got my shoulder and then the back of my neck is gonna come up and connect to that head. It kind of looks like a baby seal right now. That's not bad. That means we're on the right track, I think. All right, so we've got that baseball cap, the neck, and then we can work out our eye location. So because this is a profile, we cannot see both eyes, the other eyes on the other side. And the way I like to draw eyes for cats on the side is to really use the letter V. You find this flat part of the head, and you're gonna make a letter V point in that direction, like that. So got that open letter V, and then the eyeball is round, that's why it's called an eyeball, and we'll put that curve right in there. And then cat pupils are not circular like ours. They're more almond shaped or tall, so I want to follow that shape of the eye a little farther down to get that in. Now I'm going to color it in so you can see where it is, but you don't have to color it in because you're going to use a Sharpie marker later to do that. And I like that this eyelash is sticking up at the top, but I don't really need it so much at the bottom, so I'll get a little bit part of that off. All right, now it really looks like a seal. So let's get those ears on. Okay, first, the ear on this side is going to be coming from the side of the head. You can't just stick them up on the top of their head like those headbands that have cat ears because those are not real. So real ears are going to go in to the brain so that it works. So we want to make sure that we have a line coming inside the head. So we're going to start inside the head and draw a line that goes up. And I'm going to use the capital letter D to help me with this. So, and here I go, the letter D. That's the pink middle. And I need to erase the X-ray vision. Ta-da! Okay, and then I'm going to put the back of the ear on. So I'm going to start at the top and go down and erase the X-ray vision there. All right, see? Okay, then the other ear is going to be on the other side sticking up, and we can't have it go too high. So we want it to come up like, first you do put like a unicorn horn up here on its head. So it's kind of skinny. And then you're going to go backwards till it almost touches the other ear, but it's on the other side of the head. All right, let's take a break and look closely at what I've drawn so that you can see it well. And now we can get started on drawing the tail. You maybe would want to do the back first in your mind, but really, when you're drawing a picture, it's a good idea to know where your starting place and your stopping place is. And so our tail is going to be the most logical next step to make sure that this cat fits nicely on the page. If you notice, the tail comes right up to the edge of the page. So we're also going to start with the outside of the tail first. So I've got my ankle here, and it's not way up here. You want it to kind of line up with the bottom of the cat. So it's going to come out, bend up, follow along the side edge of your picture, and curve backwards over the cat. Creates kind of a C curve. And then we can work our way back along the tail like this. Now we've created a beginning and an end for the cat's back. So we're going to start not at the bottom of the line, but about here, and we want to imagine he goes up for his hips and then down for his back. So there we go. That is how this cat's back looks. Notice it's a bit different than the other cat, and it still looks great. So don't be concerned if it doesn't match this one or that one. Just choose one that you like the best and make yours look like that. Now that we've drawn our whole cat picture, it's time to outline with Sharpie marker. I'm going to start near the head, and you can start anywhere you want because you're just going to trace the lines that you've already drawn. If you have lines that are especially straight, don't worry about being super straight. Just try to keep a nice smooth outline as you go around your cat. This is when you will color the pupil. And we want to continue until we have the whole image outlined. In our dragonfly lesson, we discussed using a paintbrush and India ink to outline. If that's something you would enjoy, you could do that on this picture too. I'm using the Sharpie marker to outline because I'm going to use the India ink for the special effects of the Tabby cat lines. All right, let's keep tracing. Now that I have the whole cat traced, I'm going to add some details. One of them is I would like to see those cute little freckles where their whiskers pop out, and also the line that shows the floors at the bottom and the walls at the top. And I'm actually going to use this as a straight edge for that. So it's going to be at about the middle of the paw. So obviously I didn't need to put a line on this side, but I'm going to use that to measure. See how I made that mark there? So that the other side is equidistant. Measure to the bottom of the page. So I'm only gonna see this much of the wallpaper over there. All right, I'm completely finished tracing, and now I can begin to erase any pencil lines that are sticking out. Notice that I did not trace the x-ray vision on that ear, so that you don't have to worry about that. I'm gonna get that all erased and we'll be ready to paint. Now we are ready to do the India ink portion of painting our cat. It's important that you have ready in advance your India ink. So I have the straight up dark black India ink here, and then a container. I'm going to use the lid to create a light gray paint to be the wet area where the fur on the cat will be. So I have some water, so I'm just going to start filling this area up with some water so I can be sure that my paint does not dry on me before I get to add the straight up ink to the stripes. And I have about a size 7 paintbrush that's round, and I'm just gonna, I've loaded it with paint ink and I'm filling it in there, and there's a hole in my lid, so that's why I've got it on this plate, so that if it leaks it doesn't get everywhere. All right, and then I'm just gonna test it on the edge. Look how dark that is. That's actually darker than I want. So I'm gonna remix with some more water. I'll try again to see what color I have. That's much better, much lighter. Okay, so I have a very diluted India ink to create this pale gray color, and I have it in this lid here. So and this is not diluted. It is India ink that's not diluted, and I need to have that handy before I get started painting because I do not want my ink to dry all the way before I get a chance to put those special effects on. All right, so looking at my original, the cat has a white chin, chest, front paws, stomach, and the paw of the back foot. And there's a white tip on its tail. So, and notice that the edge here is not a straight line. We want a more natural line there. So I'm gonna start painting with my brush. Here it is face, and the most important thing is that I reload my brush frequently so that that puddle can stay there. We really need a puddle of the light gray paint. If we don't have a puddle, we won't be able to get the special effect that we're looking for with the straight India ink that is not diluted. So I'm reloading frequently. Even if there's plenty of paint and I think, oh, I could just keep painting, it's very important to just keep reloading your brush. If you don't reload, it'll dry on you, and if the paint is dry, you will not be able to get those cool stripes. You'll be able to get stripes, but they won't be able to spread like what we're hoping for. So reload, 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 reload. And you can even go backwards and put some wet paint back up in there. If you've made it pretty far, keep watching. If you notice that it's drying, just get it wet again. You need that sheen. If you don't have that sheen, it won't work. You have to do this with the paper lying flat, because if you have it up on an easel, it's just going to drip down. So now while this is wet, I'm going to use this straight up ink. And this is how I get the stripes. Starting at the Sharpie line. You need a little distance. And I don't want to touch them so that they can spread on their own. I didn't get a smaller brush. I stayed with a large brush that I was using before. If you feel more comfortable with a smaller brush, you can. But I'm fine with the larger brush. All right, look at those beautiful stripes that we have. It's important to let that dry completely before we do anything else, and just leave it still there while it is drying. The cat was left flat to completely dry, so you can see I can touch it. And that way the stripes could do their amazing work all on their own. And also I wanted it completely dry before we did anything else so that nothing would happen with those stripes and nothing would happen anywhere else. One of the things that I've learned is I was saving my India ink from the background gray to use somewhere else in the picture, but I waited a day or two and I've discovered that the waterproof ink will separate out and it is no longer possible to use this ink to paint. It's got the little bits and it's very light, so I have created the same color again because we're not finished with our India ink before we start on our watercolor. One of the things that we want to do now is to create the darker color for the carpet at the bottom. And instead of just painting blue and yellow as we plan to, we want a nice layer of gray India ink on the bottom area to give the bottom weight. It makes it have a nice weight to be below the cat, to be a good carpet. And it mutes that blue color and creates a nice kind of colonial blue. So we're going to use the same gray color to paint the area under the cat. And you want to let this dry before you move on to the next painting step as well. All right, all of our India ink work is finished and dry, and now we get to move on to the praying watercolors. When I was doing the India ink, I couldn't help myself. I put a tiny shade inside that middle of the ear, and now I am ready to use the watercolors. So these are just a simple semi-moist praying watercolor pan. And so I've got my same paintbrush, but I washed it, and I've got some water. And so I'm just going to start with the yellow color first. It is the lightest color, and I like to always start with the lightest colors first. And I'm even going to just turn my cat in the direction where I can reach into there a lot easier to fill in the paint. The trick with watercolors is that you keep it wet as you go along. You don't want it to dry, because then you'll have a patchwork quilt of even the same color. It will create borders and edges that will look like a quilt. So you want to keep it wet, and you want to keep moving, and you want to start in one area and make your way over to the other area. You don't want to just randomly jump all around everywhere, because you'll get those lines like a patchwork quilt if you do that. So we want to get our paint wet. And you want it pretty wet. It's called watercolor for a reason. It needs to be wet. And we kind of stir it around there. And I'm going to start over here and kind of keep that balloon of wet paint coming around the corner of this cat. And you want to keep it spreading and keep it coming this way. And then you get your brush wet again, get a little more. If it starts getting thick, then you definitely need more water. So you don't want it to get super thick, and you also don't want it super thin. So, well, you might. If you're going for a pale color, then super thin is how you will achieve that, with a lot more water. All right, we're gonna make it all the way around. The yellow is painted and mostly dry, and with this painting, I'm using the primary colors. So I'm gonna switch now from the yellow to the blue. And so I'm gonna get that blue wet. And this India ink is dry already, so it's gonna go down here, and I'm gonna put some on the eye. I'm gonna leave a little part next to the pupil that is not painted blue though for a highlight. So I'm gonna go around the bottom and the left and leave just a little bit in front of that pupil that is the white paper only. So I don't know if you can see that. All right, and then I'm going to use blue on the bottom area down here. So I'm going to turn it again so my arm could reach it better. And just like the yellow, you want to keep it wet and keep it moving on top of this gray. I mentioned primary colors before. Red, yellow, and blue are the primary colors. So we used yellow, we've used blue, both of those areas are dry, and now we're going to use red, but we're not going to use red in its full strength because we're looking for a pink color, not a bright red color. So I'm going to use my paintbrush to pull a little water over here in this well of this paint tray. And then I'm going to grab some red and mix it over there, and you can see this red has an orange or a bright kind of fire engine color to it. So it's not going to be too pink, it's going to be a bright color. So I've got that over there, and I just want to test it in the corner to see if it's faint enough. Yes, that's what I'm looking for. All right, so I'm going to get my cat over here, and we're going to focus in on the face. I'm going to put a touch of that on the nose. It's really important that your yellow paint is dry at this step, because if it was wet up here, it could crawl out, and then you would have to name your cat Rudolph because its red nose would be glowing into the yellow background. And that's not the end of the world. That could be a pretty fancy lit up Rudolph cat, I guess. But I prefer that not to happen. I also don't want his ears to be glowing. So the dry gray and the dry yellow is important to me. And that's really how you do work in watercolors. You kind of move around your watercolor painting to allow certain areas to be drying while you're painting on other areas. And so at that point, we are finished painting this picture, and we're going to let it dry, and then we'll take off the tape and look at our finished product. Everything is dry, and I'm ready to remove my tape. If you haven't been to any of our lessons, then you won't know, so I just want to go over it again. We're going to pull the tape low, so at the same plane as your artwork, and at a right angle, so that it makes this capital letter L as it is removed. And it needs to make that strong horizontal as it comes off the entire distance. And then I think it's just easier to rotate your picture and keep pulling on the same side instead of trying to figure out how to do it the next side over. And you'll continue like that until you get it all the way off. And here is our finished product. Thank you for joining me to paint our cat watercolor India ink project. I hope that you had fun. I had fun doing it with you, and I hope that you join me in one of the Arlington Heights Library Zoom meetups where we can talk about different tips and tricks, and you can ask me your questions, and please bring your paintings that you make during these lessons to the Zoom meetups so that we can talk about them and I can see them and get to see you. All right, have a great day. Talk to you soon. Bye.